Welcome. I've been thinking, what happens in the mind and body of people that have experienced trauma? And why is it so hard to gain solace from it? Today, we will find out why traumatic events haunt us with the secondhand advice from the book, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel Kolk. We're all familiar with stories of war veterans that have lived through the cruelty and pain of war, that have taken lives in battle, or who have watched the death of a fellow soldier. Traumatized soldiers often don't fit back into society. They have memory problems, oversensitivity, and become strangers to themselves and their families. We'll discover how trauma victims view their environment, and we'll learn why there's hope for those traumatized and how they can be healed. Today, we'll discuss why war veterans only trust other war vets, why an everyday magazine photo can trigger horrifying thoughts, and how new techniques are being studied to deal with trauma. Trauma is unbelievably common in our culture. Trauma isn't something only encountered by veterans. The reality is that trauma can happen to anyone. Traumas occur when a person experiences extreme pain or stress that leaves them feeling defenseless or too overwhelmed to deal with difficulty. Experiences, including war, typically result in traumas, yet accidents and violent crimes trigger them also. Rape and child abuse are horrific events, and unfortunately, they are more prevalent than you may think. Statistics show that 12 million women were victims of rape in the US in 2014 alone, and more than half of those were under the age of 15 at the time of the assault. Every year in the US, there are 3 million instances of child abuse. These traumatic experiences can alter the lives of those affected and the lives of their friends and family. Traumatized people frequently struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, bringing on substance abuse and depression. Additionally, traumatized people tend to mistrust people who haven't experienced the same suffering and conclude that nobody can understand them. In a therapy group set up for Vietnam veterans, those that weren't traumatized by the war were thought of as outsiders by the group. It can take months of listening, empathizing, and developing trust with veterans for them to accept strangers. Developing a connection with somebody suffering from PTSD is an obstacle by itself. So imagine trying to preserve a marriage, a friendship, or a steady parent-child relationship. Traumatized people find it tough to rely on even those that love them most, including spouses and children. This can be detrimental to friends and families, commonly causing estrangement or isolation. Flashbacks trigger people to relive the mental and physical experience of trauma when they're reminded of it. Do you ever recall something unpleasant you did and feel yourself squirm or blush? This feeling gives you a slight glimpse into how memories of trauma can influence the body. When a person living with PTSD recalls their trauma, their body and mind enter a high stress mode, given that they experience the memory as if it were real. This experience is called a flashback, an effect of trauma that the author researched in an experiment he carried out with his patients. Each patient listened to a recording of a script that recreated their traumatic experience. As the recording played, patients inhaled air with a small concentration of radioactive particles. This air was visible in a brain scan to see which areas of the mind were active when people recalled their trauma. Childhood trauma has adverse influences, not just in a child's youth, but into their adult years as well. Traumatic experiences are challenging to handle as an adult, but there is nothing more complicated than facing trauma as a young child. With minds that aren't entirely developed, children who experience trauma are poised to experience a vast array of adverse effects. These effects occur in the immediate years following their experiences and later into adulthood. Traumatized children anticipate negative events happening. In an experiment, researchers showed cards with images from magazines to kids who had experienced trauma and those who hadn't. One of the cards showed two kids watching their dad fix a car as he lay beneath it, while the kids without trauma imagined a tale based on the image where the dad repaired the car and took his kids to McDonald's. The traumatized children pictured much darker circumstances. One girl said that one of the kids in the pictures would shatter the dad's head with a hammer. Another child claimed the car would fall, squashing the father's body. For these children, these pictures had various triggers that led them to visualize the scene ending violently. These thinking patterns commonly continue into adulthood. Our typical memories fade and change, but traumatic memories are graphic, unchanging, and quickly set off. When we tell stories, we often embellish, overemphasize, or leave out parts of our experiences. By the fourth time we've recounted this story, it'll be quite unlike the first version. We even remember things in different ways over time. Why is this? Generally, we don't remember the sensory information of events. Many remember what we did or how we felt, yet we don't store vibrant memories about the smell of the room we were in or the precise details of someone's face. However, it's different when it comes to traumatic events. We remember these situations vividly, and the memories don't alter over time. For example, when people were asked to recall pivotal yet non-traumatic occasions in their lives, like their wedding day or their child's birth. In these situations, people could remember their basic feelings like joy or anxiousness, but they didn't have a precise picture of how their partner's hair looked on their big day, for instance. Nevertheless, when people were asked to remember traumatic memories, smell, taste, touch, and hearing played a significant role. One person who was raped stated that a specific smell of alcohol instantly reminded her of her rape, so much so that she couldn't attend parties any longer. Likewise, we remember traumatic memories consistently without modifications. In a study by Harvard Medical School, 200 men were tested regularly from their initial experiment, which they did between 1939 and 1945, up until the present. The topic of these tests was how their memories, both traumatic and regular, formed them. Several participants were World War II veterans and people living with PTSD. While the memories of those that weren't traumatized by the war altered gradually, the veterans' memories remained the same. They stayed consistent for more than 45 years after the war ended. Trauma remains with you, both in your body as well as your brain. So, how do people learn to cope with it? EMDR incorporates patients' memories and restores a sense of control over their body and mind. The technique is simple and involves moving only a finger back and forth across a person's line of vision. While the patient watches the finger with their eyes, they're guided through a traumatic memory and encouraged to make new associations. This method is referred to as EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. While EMDR may sound easy, there is a mystery behind it, given that little is understood about how or why it's so effective. What is apparent is that it assists patients by integrating traumatic memories. This is crucial because if memories aren't integrated, they can still transpire before a PTSD patient's eyes as if it's real life. Once a memory is integrated, it can become a past occasion in the patient's life and stop having a troubling life of its own. EMDR and other methods help patients regulate their relationship to traumatic events by integrating them into their memories. By doing so, the person develops a healthier relationship to a traumatic memory and a sense of autonomy over their minds, bodies, and lives. Impressive results have been attained through EMDR. Additionally, mindfulness and supporting connections are vital to trauma recovery. Mindfulness is maintaining an awareness of your body and your feelings, rather than refusing them. This is particularly challenging after trauma, as painful memories cause us to repress our emotions instead of addressing them. No one likes to feel down, angry, or broken, significantly when traumatic memories activate these feelings. But by repressing these feelings, you also deny yourself the opportunity to face your trauma and start healing. Mindfulness can ease the psychological influences of trauma, from depression to anxiety to chronic pain. It can enhance immunity and trigger areas of the brain that aid in managing emotions and balancing stress hormones. Did you know that everything that takes place in the brain is due to electrical signals? These brain waves control our thought processes, so they're vital. Unfortunately, they can be damaged by trauma. There are various types of brain waves, one of these being alpha waves, which are triggered when we feel relaxed and calm. A study that examined soldiers who served in Iraq and Afghanistan disclosed that their brains generated fewer alpha waves the longer they spent in war. Instead, soldiers produced brain waves similar to those of children with ADHD, hindering their ability to relax and remain calm and focused. Thankfully, the brain has the potential to recover with a process called neurofeedback. Neurofeedback assists trauma patients with rewiring their brains. Neurofeedback allows traumatized patients to change their brain waves and increase the production of alpha waves to help them relax and stay calm. By displaying the person's brain waves to them in real time on a display, they can see when they need to make a conscious effort to relax. When they do, they'll see their alpha waves being generated and be compensated via a user interface that can seem like a video game. Though neurofeedback is successful, it's still rarely used. Generally, our culture has a long way to go when it comes to recognizing and managing trauma. However, with a broader approval of mindfulness and more understanding of mental illnesses in the last few years, there is reason to be optimistic concerning the future of mental health and wellness. Let's review. Although trauma can happen to anybody, not many of us know how traumatic experiences impact our mental and physical health, even decades after it happens. Mindfulness, EMDR, and new techniques like neurofeedback are vital tools for those who suffer from trauma as they navigate acceptance, coping mechanisms, and recovery. Have you experienced trauma? What coping mechanisms have worked best for you? Comment below with your best advice. Please be sure to like and subscribe as well. And thank you for watching. During this unprecedented time in our history, many more people are finding themselves dealing with depression, the trauma of coronavirus, job loss, and isolation. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA, offers a free, confidential, 24/7, 365-day-a-year treatment, referral, and information service for individuals and families facing mental and/or substance use disorders. Please call 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. In 2020, the helpline had a 27% increase in calls from the previous year. Know that you are not alone and don't be afraid to get help. We all need it from time to time.